Hi, and welcome to episode 14 on our screencast series about building a social networking site using the ColdFusion on Wheels framework. In this episode, I'll cover responding with multiple formats using a couple different functions in the controller and adding a couple extra view templates. In the previous episode of this screencast, we added a pagination feature for our application, which was a great demonstration of Wheels' pagination features built right in. But when you have a social network like this with status updates, usually at the bottom of the first page you'll see a link that says something like show 10 more or load 10 more. And then it makes an AJAX request to the server and pulls back data in a format that it can consume. We'll cover the first part of that in this screencast, which is the server-side element of Wheels responding with data in a format like XML or JSON. So let's go over to our code editor and open the main controller. And the first thing that I'm going to do is create a constructor named init. And in here I'm going to call a initialization function called provides. And what this accepts is a list of formats that you would like for the controller to provide automatically. So choices are HTML, which is the default. So if you don't ever specify provides, everything will be HTML. But we can also provide JSON, XML, PDF, CSV, XLS, and a host of other formats, and Wheels will respond accordingly. The two most interesting ones are JSON and XML though, because Wheels will do some automatic data translation for you. So the next requirement is at the end of any action that you would like to provide these different formats, you need to call renderWith. And you should run this in place of the implicit render page that happens at the end. And then renderWith accepts data that you would like to transform, so we'll pass it the status updates query. Now if we go back here, and at the end of our URL, we add a format equals JSON, you'll see that Wheels responded with a file of type application/JSON. And if we open this, you'll see that it automatically took our first page of data and translated it into JSON and returned that instead of the HTML. So you can also see the same thing. We could do format equals HTML, and we'll just get back this. And we can also do format equals XML. And if I view the source here, you'll see that it returned similar type of thing. It returns an XML string formatted with all of the data. Now there's another trick that we can do using routes. What if instead of having to pass this query string at the end, we could do something like this, .xml or .json, and Wheels would already know what you want to do with that. As it turns out, the format that's requested, because it's a query param, gets stored in the param struct as params.format. So now we can go and config routes.cfm and add a route. So here we have our home with page number. We could also add a route also called home with page number. And because this will be more specific, I want to put this above the one that's already there. And we'll do our usual pattern of main home page and then page, but at the end we're going to put .format, and we'll pass this to the main controller and the home action. Now if I reload my application to reload that new route, I can now do one.xml. And as you can see, it produced the XML just the same way. And the same thing will happen with home or one.json. As you can see, it returned the JSON string again. Lastly, yet another option for requesting different data types from Wheels. You can also pass an accept header if you're consuming your Wheels app from another application through a web service. And you can just pass the MIME type in the accept header, and Wheels will recognize if you're requesting JSON, XML, or even other formats that you can set up. So now let's view source again. And this source generated by Wheels is awesome if you just need something fast. You need to provide data for one of your applications real fast, and it doesn't matter so much to you how it's formatted. But there are a couple things that maybe you'd want to change about this automatic data translation. First, it gives you its own structure. So it's got a data container with type query that everything's inside. And another thing that you'll notice is because Wheels and ColdFusion are case insensitive with variables, you'll notice that this about element is all caps, as well as the birth date and the deleted at and so on. If you would like to override this, the good news is that you can add your own formatting to these different types. And what you do is you create a new view template. So we're doing this for the home action. So we'll create a view template at home.json.cfm if we want to do JSON format. We could do home.xml or any of the other formats if we would like to override what Wheels does automatically. So in here, let's build a string that will eventually be serialized into JSON. So we'll do data to return. So above that, let's CF set data to return, and let's make it an array. And we can loop through our query of status updates. And we can array append into our data to return. And let's add a struct. And we'll add some of the data that I think we need to the struct. Now note that in certain versions of ColdFusion and engines like Rilo, sometimes you need to put your keys in quotation marks if you want it to honor the casing, if you don't want it to be in all caps. So out of habit, I'll do created at in caps, and we'll do status updates.created@. And I think we'll need first name, last name, message, and lastly URL ID. Now, if I run my page1.json, it'll send me back some JSON. And this time you'll see that it's in the format that I specified. So we've got URL ID, and it's in the casing that I specified, and it's pretty. For more information about ColdFusion on Wheels and responding with multiple formats, visit cfwheels.org.